For decades, it was absolutely the ultimate promise, the real bedrock of the American dream. The deal was simple, right? If you worked hard, you earned a stable place in the middle class, a home, a family, and a secure future. But lately, the math just isn't adding up. Millions of families feel like they're working harder than ever, only to slip further and further behind. So we have to ask a pretty terrifying question. Is the great American middle class quietly vanishing right in front of us, or is it just evolving into something entirely new?
To really grasp the sheer scale of the pressure people are feeling, take a look at this number. $18.78 trillion. Trillion, with a T. According to data from the New York Fed, that's the total U.S. household debt at the end of 2025. It's a massive, jarring statistic. And it proves that the financial squeeze you or your neighbors might be feeling isn't just in your head. It's a systemic reality. People are literally leveraging their futures just to survive the present.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're treating this whole economic paradox like an investigative mystery. We're going to dig into the conflicting clues, the hidden data, and the fiercely debated theories surrounding the American middle class. Now, we aren't here to play politics or take sides. We are just going to follow the evidence exactly where it leads, using the data to uncover why the rules of the game seem to have completely changed overnight.
Chapter 1. The Golden Age Baseline.
Okay, so to solve a mystery, you first have to establish a baseline, right? We need to know what the middle class looked like when it was supposedly functioning perfectly. Let's step back to the post-World War II economic boom. This was an era where prosperity wasn't just growing, it was widely shared across the population through deliberate policy choices. In 1944, the GI Bill and massive military contracts laid a huge foundation of capital. By the 1950s, a really strong labor movement ensured corporate gains actually translated into working-class security. That's what allowed single-income families in suburbia to thrive. By 1959, U.S. car ownership hit an astonishing 74%. And the absolute peak, that was 1970, when the middle class captured a dominant 62% of all aggregate national income. The escalator was moving everyone up.
Okay, let's dive into this. Chapter 2. Where did everyone go?
If 1970 was the peak, what exactly does the landscape look like right now? Well, Pew Research Center data reveals a massive shift. Back in 1971, a clear majority of Americans, about 61%, lived in middle-class households. But fast forward to 2023, and that slice contracted to just 51%. That is a massive 10% collapse in the relative size of the middle class. Millions of people have fundamentally shifted out of the economic center, so this is our first major plot twist. Where did they actually go?
And this is exactly where our investigation splits into two fiercely conflicting theories. On one side, you have the Cato Institute arguing this is actually a story of upward mobility. They point out that real median household incomes rose 73% since 1968, and the share of households earning over $100,000 basically tripled. They say the middle class shrank because people got richer. But on the flip side, the Economic Opportunity Institute points to the lost decade of the 2000s, where real incomes fell across all tiers, erasing years of gains and pushing families backward. The crazy part, depending on how you frame the timeline, both sets of data are technically true.
How is that possible? Well, looking at localized data completely resolves that paradox. The shrinking middle class is actually a highly localized mystery. In energy-rich Midland, Texas, the middle class shrank by 10% because the upper income share doubled to 37%. People moved up. But in Goldsboro, North Carolina, the middle class fell by 12% because the lower income share rose sharply to 41%. For them, the shrinking middle class meant sheer economic catastrophe. It's truly a tale of two cities.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, the affordability crisis.
So the crucial point here is that just measuring nominal income doesn't tell the whole story. We have to shift our investigation to the hidden mechanisms of survival. Like, why is it that even families with rising nominal incomes feel like they're completely drowning today? Enter a critical demographic defined by researchers as ALICE. That stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. We're talking about a staggering 36 million American households, about 29% of the country. These families earn above the outdated federal poverty line, which means they don't qualify for most assistance, but they earn far less than what it actually costs to survive in the modern economy. They're fully employed, but totally financially trapped.
And honestly, that brings us to one of the most shocking statistics in this entire explainer. According to a comprehensive analysis by Brookings, 1/3 of the American middle class does not make enough money to afford basic necessities. Really think about that. 1 in 3 middle-class families cannot comfortably afford the baseline costs of a decent life. So how did we get here? Well,
Because the basic ingredients of the American dream have skyrocketed in price. Housing prices consistently outpace local incomes. Public university tuition, which was once the great equalizer, now averages a crushing $15,000 net price for families earning just $45,000 a year. Even basic legal crises, which average around $2,500, can totally ruin an Alice family. Add in the compounding weight of childcare and healthcare premiums, and the math of the system just no longer works in the average family's favor.
Now, what's really interesting here is the hidden structural shift behind this gap. Between 1979 and 2025, U.S. labor productivity grew by an incredible 90.2%. But the typical worker's pay? That only grew by 33%.
The median worker would be earning an additional $16.40 per hour today. Instead, that immense wealth generated by the American worker was quietly routed somewhere else.
And to compound that wage stagnation, corporate America executed what is basically a silent transfer of risk. The National Institute on Retirement Security points out that corporations systematically dismantled defined benefit pensions, the ones that guaranteed lifetime income. In their place, we got defined contribution 401k accounts. This quietly shifted the entire burden of investment strategy, market volatility, and the terrifying risk of just outliving your money squarely onto the shoulders of the individual worker. It's left so many seniors highly vulnerable.
And we have to be clear, this affordability crisis doesn't hit everyone equally. Brookings data reveals profound demographic disparities. While 27% of white middle-class families struggle to afford basic necessities, that number jumps to 39% for Black families, 41% for Asian American families, and a staggering 50% for Latino families. Despite having very similar nominal median incomes, historic wealth gaps and a lack of inherited assets mean families of color have much, much thinner safety nets when the cost of living spikes. To really bring that data to life, let's look at a specific example cited by Brookings. In Prince George's County, Maryland, which is a historically affluent, majority Black suburb, researchers found that dominant institutions and real estate appraisers systematically undervalue Black-owned space compared to white neighborhoods with identical incomes. It's institutional hurdles exactly like this that actively wipe out generational home equity, stripping wealth away from the middle class regardless of how hard they work.
Let's move on and see how all of this builds up. Chapter 4. The ripple effects.
We need to broaden our lens here. Why does this matter to everyone, even if you are comfortably sitting in the upper income bracket? What are the ultimate stakes of this investigation? Because a dying middle class isn't just a financial crisis, it's a systemic one. Research from the University of Chicago reveals a dark ripple effect. Unequal economic conditions and a hollowing out of the middle class generate deep, deep public grievance. It breeds skepticism toward institutions and accelerates extreme political polarization, and even democratic backsliding. When people feel the economic game is rigged against them, the very fabric of democratic governance begins to fray.
We've followed the clues, the income gaps, the localized collapses, the soaring costs of survival, and the massive shifting of risk. The evidence clearly shows a class of people transformed from comfortable earners into high-stress survivors. The trajectory we're on is entirely unsustainable. So I'll leave you with this haunting, unresolved question to really think about. If the middle class truly disappears entirely, what happens to the American dream?